to the COVID, there was so much conflicting information. I'm not sure. I mean, depending on what television channel you listen to, one says you don't get a shot, and the other says you have to have a shot. How is that? Why can't we have government officials who come on and say something as simple as, all the tests aren't in, but from preliminary data, it seems like the shots help, or at least it keeps you out of the hospital. So we're recommending that there are
that's common sense. That's common sense.
It'll get you out of the hospital, as opposed to you get the shot or you don't get the shot. The shot will kill you or this. I mean, that doesn't make sense. And people like Fauci, who I think is going to go down in history as one of the most cynical, worst politicians in the entire history of the United States, just because of how much lying he did to the Americans. And lying's a bad word. It's more of disinformation. Yes, misleading. Everything was scaled to be a little bit too tricky. And what we need our scientists, at least in my mind, what I think we need scientists to tell us is, look, science is something that changes all the time as we get new data. So we don't necessarily love this, but here's what we have and here's what we think it is. And we have a certainty or an uncertainty ratio of 10% or 90% or whatever, and let people make their minds up. But at least this way, if everybody's hearing the same thing and the data is real, most people are going to say, maybe I should get the shot because I'll stay out of the hospital, not because I'm going to, it's going to immune me from anything. But I think if you remember going back, Trump and Biden both said you get the shot, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get COVID. And then all of a sudden people were saying, well, if you get the shot, you're going to have a heart attack. I mean, it just makes no sense to do it this way. Tell the people the truth.
Bill, one of the things, that the problem on there was that the CDC, based in Atlanta, Georgia, during the Trump administration, prior to that, I knew some people who worked down there. They would let science dictate what they talked about, and wherever the facts were, be they good or be they bad, that's what went out. Right. I mean, like you said, the science is one of those things that we all know. And when you watch our weather, it changes every day.
Yeah.
To some degree, and no one has control of that. And one of the things that I live by, I just look forward to a new day every day and something new. And I think that's the way science is, because it's going to give us a new report on something that we thought was, like, now there are laws being changed that make things that were illegal, like marijuana and stuff that were legal years ago. Like Missouri just passed a law now that recreational marijuana, is legal. Well, I didn't go for that because, for one of the things that it was a flawed deal the way it's working, but now it's being driven by economics, the money they can make off of it.
Oh, it's a great tax revenue.
Yeah, it's a great tax revenue,
But if you want to know what the great tax revenues are, marijuana, cigarettes, liquor, wine. Hey, there's government's in the business to make money so they can do what they want to do. They're not in the business they're not in the business to help anybody. They're in the business to help themselves. They're salesmen. They're all salesmen.
That's why you got to depend on God.
Yep.
That's why you got to depend on the Lord Jesus Christ instead of foolish men out here that's in a wicked system. They're in a wicked system. And they don't care nothing about themselves. They set up on the same principle of the devil.
Yep.
But we can't deny that, But one of the things in Missouri.
But I wanted to respond to Rev.
Go ahead.
When all of the politicians get done fighting with each other, the next thing that they're going to attack is going to be religion. Is going to be attacked and attacked and attacked. They have to get religion out of society for government to control things. Religion's the one thing that really puts a block in how much power they can have, because some people actually believe there are higher powers than a politician.
You can't get rid of God, because God is in the people.
Well, they can do what Russia did. They can ban it and they can make it hard.
It don't make me no difference, because they can't touch it unless God permit it to happen.
Well, government works in strange ways, but
they can work all the strangers they want, but they cannot touch you unless God give them permission. Look out!
One of the things, okay, that's in our country is that you know I go back on this. A guy named Ralph Reed. You recall him?
Oh, sure.
Okay, well, one of the things that goes back, okay, there was a time that was church and state did not intertwine. You know, they had their own separate departments, their own separate areas. And during that time period, Ralph Reed kind of started that movement. And now it's to the point now that a lot of churches right now are now involved themselves more in politics than ever before. And I think that's another reason we see a lot of things taking place. Okay, that's not out of the ordinary. That's like oil and water. They just don't mix.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, it's a difference. An organization is a thing of people without Christ, but an organism is one people of Christ.
Okay. Well, we are the organism. That's one thing for sure. Okay. Let me ask you another question. Okay. Being that the Republican red wave did not take place, and now they sort of point fingers right now as to why, what, or what, who is guilty of that. What are your thoughts about that? Where the blame is possibly lie at?
Well, I mean, you know, you can blame anybody you want. My thing is the Democrats got more people out to vote, and they saved themselves. It's that simple. You can sit there and say, well, it was Trump's fault. Maybe Trump made mistakes. You can sit there and say it was Schumer didn't put the money in the right place, or McConnell didn't put the money in the right place. I mean, at the end of the day, both parties had a strategy, and the Democrats, their strategy seemed to be very, very simple. They rely much more on the mail-in vote. And it's been shown over the last several elections that the mail-in vote produces a lot of very early votes and a lot of votes. The Republicans, you know, generally have said they're going to show up that day and they're going to vote in person. Well, that's a losing strategy because you can get more people. Now, I may disagree with mail-in voting because I think citizens should have at least enough interest in their country to get out of bed and go vote. But having said that, if mail-in vote is what the process is, you can get a lot more votes through the mail-in than you can getting people to get out of bed and go vote. So I think the Republicans are going to have to change their strategy. As to whether money went to the right places or the wrong places, I have absolutely no idea. Whether Trump was helpful or not, I have absolutely no idea. He was helpful if you were running in a district where you needed conservative votes, and he was harmful if you ran in a district where the Democrats hated him. But that's politics. I mean, at the end of the day, it was the mail-in vote was, I think, number one, and what you referred to a minute ago, the younger group. I think they were the largest demographic voting in the election. So between mail-ins and the younger generation, that's a big change. And I think if the Republicans don't understand that change, they're going to have problems long term.
Well, let me ask you a question, Bill. Another thing that you and I discussed before the election was about your fortune. You think that played any kind of trade into the result at all?
Oh, absolutely. And I guess I was naive on the issue. The Supreme Court did not ban abortion. The Supreme Court said it's a state issue. And the way I've looked at state issues, when you're as old as I am, state issues become one of those things where, you know, when I was in school, I went to school in Pennsylvania, and if if you were 20 years old, you couldn't drink in Pennsylvania at that time because you had to be 21. So we went to New York because you only had to be 18. So I traveled to a different state. So I never looked at it and said states are different. I grew up, for example, when I grew up, they had remember the blue laws where you could store on Sundays? Well, I remember
Missouri was that
buy
state.
local bread. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to go from Pennsylvania to New Jersey to get bread on a Sunday. So,
you couldn't shop.
Right. So when the Supreme Court did this, I said, oh, well, if somebody wants it, they go to a different state. I mean, I never thought of it as oppressive as they did. I looked at it and said, some states are going to have easier rules than others. I'm personally pro-life, so it was a rewarding decision for me, but at the same token, you have to understand that a lot of young people look at it as a very oppressive decision. And again, it's who understands the electorate, who can get the vote out. And obviously, I think the Democrats probably did a much better job than the Republicans this year.
Well, I think one of the things that the Democratic chairman of the party kept saying that he was going back to old school. Not so much social media, but knocking on doors. I'm from old school, where if I came to your house and you had a homeless sign in the window, I took great pride in trying to convince you to change the sign, put my sign down. You had that personal contact with people, and I think, like Senator mentioned a second ago, Bill, I personally like going to the polls on election day to vote. I just like being in the atmosphere. Just to say I voted that day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I said I know a lot of people in Missouri voted, but around the country, a lot of people voted in advance. But I think that for all the people who have died and fought for, I came from Mississippi down in Louisiana there, where blacks just could not do certain things. Right. They couldn't. Okay, and voting was one of those things. So I know the least I can do is get up and go vote. Okay, for people that fought, for me, had that right.
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, I get up and go vote. I mean, I like to see who's working the polls, what's the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I like being in that environment, and years ago, I used to kind of run elections. I was, I was running campaigns and blah, 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 But now I just kind of like to go there and see what changes they're made. And now here in Missouri, we got a new law that was passed that no one can vote without having an actual license to vote. Okay, your ID, right. I think that made some differences, but I think people kind of adjusted to that. You have to adjust. Like we have talking about like science. Nobody knows, so our lives we have to adjust to the. There was a time that without global warming, what you want to call it, the climates were predictable. Mm-hmm. We could, but right now we haven't. Like you mentioned, a hurricane just kind of went past up your way a little bit most recently, and it went through Florida. And that hurricane in Florida played hell down there, and it was all in off season, so to speak. Right. It wasn't that time of year.
Some things just don't happen on schedule, Si.
Right, it's on schedule, okay, and like I said, and here, like in Missouri, we have had resort weather for the last couple of months. This is our first real cold spell that we had since last winter.
Really?
I mean, right, yeah. I mean, one we be up, we be down. This is the coldest we had in a long time, but we would be 70 degrees. We had 80 degrees last week.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, really, okay. I mean, the week before it was down again, up again, and that's why. I don't know about you, but me and Reb, okay, we old school, we put on our long johns when it gets cold. But right now, I'm about to put my long johns on. But I think winter's here.
Well, we usually have winter by this time, but I think it's 72 degrees outside today.
That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And that's something that's real. That you got to adjust to. And we even had some snow here in the area today. We had snow. Matter of fact, in Belleville, Illinois, it's not part of the river from St. Louis. They had 5 inches of snow. I mean, but it didn't go all over the place, okay, but that's a lot of snow, Bill.
Yeah, and you don't have any mountains either.
No, well, see, Bill, I tell people, we have Kansas to our west and Oklahoma to our west, and then you get into some mountainous areas there. But when those winds come across that flat land, that's why we got our cold air, you know. And so recently, we can watch Kansas City temperature drop about 30 degrees, you know, and we see it coming this way. That's why I said to you, Bill, it's coming your way. Okay, you know, we all come like meteorologists and trying to predict what the weather going to be. But the one thing we do know is cold, and it should be cold. And it's bad for.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, and it's bad for your health also, because you know the cold air, the coldness kills dinner. You know, and that's one thing. That's a fact that hasn't gone away.
Well, you know, look at it this way, Ira. The great thing about the weather is it changes, and as long as you can feel the changes, you're alive. So that should make you feel good.
Yes. That's what I said. Well, I think a step further, okay? I wake up in the morning and if I can, people hate pain. If I can feel pain from what I've been through, I know I'm alive.
You've been through a lot.
Right. So if I wake up and I can feel some pain, I know good or bad, I am alive. I mean, that's a good thing to me. You know, and my pain be in moderation some days, but at the end of the day, I'm happy to be here.
You know, and that's such an important point that you make, because most people sort of, I think they just sort of go through the day and do what they have to. Instead, they should just think about it. The weather's changing, you know, it could be cold. Well, why is it cold today? Where's the cold front coming from? Or we have a crime problem. Well, what are the options for it? And just take the step further of being alive and just start asking yourself questions. Why am I here? Why is the weather changing? You don't have to get to the big philosophical issues. Like, just understand it's going to be cold next week, and this week it was hot. And why did that happen? Where did it come from? What did it affect? How did it do? Where did it go? I don't know. And it just makes life a little bit more interesting to be asking questions than to just try to deal with whatever happens.
Well, Bill, there was a time that people would kind of discuss that, but nowadays people rely on watching the 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, like news, waiting for the meteorologist to tell them what's going to happen. And that's one of the jobs that we have found to be the most misleading. So people making some big time money to tell you a lie.
It's really interesting as to, you know, talking about what people are interested in, where they get their information. If you, I was reading some old newspapers online the other day, and if you went back like to the 1850s, you know, one of the big entertainments in town, the people would just go to the courtroom to see court cases. That's pretty interesting. And they would go out and the politicians would have 2 and 3 hour debates, and they would read, you know, newspapers of 20, 30, 40, 50 pages long. And all of that's gone. People, you know, they just go in their cars, stay in their houses. There's no civic contact. They're just separate from whatever's going on anywhere. Right now, you know, I know you had some news on the war in Ukraine as I was sort of listening in, but right now, wars are going to be fought with, you know, drones. And
well, yeah, that's cool. Yes.
Everything is just, people aren't involved anymore, and that's pretty frightening. And the ads on TV say if you have artificial intelligence working in your factories, they know when a part's going to break before it happens. We don't need people anymore. No, seriously, think about it.
Oh no, I think you can see that, okay, in the automobile industry. There was a time, okay, that in American cars, they change design every year. They would change design, you know, and then it would break down. You know, they give you a 5-year warranty. Well, they didn't away with the 5-year warranty, but the foreign countries. I had a pastor, sermon which I was on TV, and he was old repeat. He said that China and Japan, Korean people, they were dropping bombs in our country, And what he meant was they were dropping all these foreign cars in the country that lasted a long time.
Right.
And now, okay, the American cars are now following, designs from foreign countries. But they're more aerodynamic, dynamic. They get better mileage nowadays, but now what they're doing, mechanics right now, before mechanics, they could take care of your car, but now taking mechanics they're not even a dime a dozen. You can't find sometimes. Because right now you got to take your car into some place. You got some equipment diagnostic. Like you just said, it can tell you when the force about to go up. Like, one thing I talked about the other day, Bill, they got refrigerators right now that can tell you what's on the inside.
I know that.
Come on, let's look in the refrigerator and find out what's in your refrigerator.
In one sense, thank God that they have it in cars, so that when the oil's gone in the car, my wife knows she's got to change it because the lights come on. So.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah. And you want to avoid that. And plus, also, you see the needle. You get close to. He called it excitement. Okay, I know my needle getting close to that.
Right.
And now I don't know with electrical cars. Now I'm not quite sure. How. I don't have one of those, and I'm not sure. I know people got them now, but I'm not sure how you tell. When you're low. And even their bill, we're watching a revolution now, as we're going to see people building the charging station. Where people can, buy these cars, they got to go someplace. Matter of fact, I was involved with that some years ago when I was with the IVW, trying to design a program for our future. I was 10 years ahead of my time. But the problem that we found then was people that buy an electric car, the first question they ask you, okay, where can I get charged? How can I charge my car? Where can I go get the charge? And 10 years ago by, they haven't changed that question.
Right. Well, if you've ever driven across the United States, you'll know it's pretty tough to have an electric car.
Right, yes. And so right now, that's why things right now, they're trying to push us in that direction. But again, we're not really wanting to go. And like now, let me ask you this. We talked about briefly about the young people, but I think that's something that we as a country has to understand, that we come into a whole new generation, okay, where there's a whole new train of thought about how they feel about stuff. And they're coming of an age, okay, that they're quickly going to be, those baby boomers will be pushed out. Not pushed out, we just fade away. I think who said that? Who said that years ago?
I don't know. That was old generals that never died. They just fade away. That was MacArthur, I believe.
MacArthur. We're right. Yeah, you just MacArthur just fade away. Okay, well, now that was a very true statement. And another true statement that took place recently in our lives, we gotta recall, a guy named Rodney King out in California. Well, that was the first video taken of about somebody being beat. But nowadays, we just saw our whole country revolutionized for some video that took place up in Milwaukee, around the gentleman this guy killed. That changed everything. Up there, they killed it with some video. But Rodney King said, can we just get along? Right. That's the thing we all say now, can we just get along? And for some reason, we can't get along.
Well, we can't get along, and again, when we say we can't get along, there's 5 or 10% of the people that can't get along with anybody. Most people, I don't know about you, but most of the time when I go to a store or a restaurant, everybody's generally pretty polite to me, and I'm pretty polite to them.
You are here, yeah.
It's pretty rare that somebody is just aggressive and mean. And that's what I think is so disturbing, that if you look at the bulk of the people in the country, I'm not saying that we don't have crazies on both ends. We certainly do. But the bulk of the people, I think, really sort of like people and treat them with respect. The bulk. I'm not saying everyone, but they treat them with respect. Most people treat, I don't care, if you're white, black, green, blue, whatever. Most parents teach their children to respect other people right now. And we need to figure out some way, because we're going back to the younger generation. I think one of the things that I find, this is personal, maybe it's because they all want to work remotely, and it's very hard to get them into the office. They all think that they should get large bonuses before they even start work. And they've got this idea that somehow they're entitled to do something without working for it. And I know, my father just said, when I was a little kid, like 6 years old, I was cutting the grass. We didn't have a power mower. We had one of those little push mowers.
No, who did? I remember those.
He said, you live in this house and you've got extra time and you ought to help out once in a while. And, I've been working since then. I mean, you get your paper route at 12, you get up at age 12, you get up at 5:30 in the morning, you deliver all your papers on your bicycle, and you keep on doing it. And you never think, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. But a lot of the younger generation today, not a lot of them, large percentage, they don't want to go to work. Or they feel like their student loans should be forgiven. And I want to talk about that because one of the things that the young people don't understand, let me ask you, I'm not going to ask you the question because I don't think you'd know the answer, but do you realize that the largest asset owned by the federal government, the largest asset, they have about $5 trillion in cash assets and loans receivable, but the largest loan receivable that they have is student loans, $1.6 trillion.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening when you think of it like that. So if they lose that one, if the government loses it, they got to tax somebody else. So it's the kids get the free loans, but everybody pays for it. Okay, so you put that aside. But the point that I'm trying to make is there is a $31 trillion deficit in this country today. That's about $260,000 per taxpayer. So you and I and the Rev, each of us owed another $260,000 for whatever it is to sort of cover the debt of all the money we've spent. But the point is, and the interest on the debt because of inflation is going to go up. They're estimating $66 trillion by 2090. Yeah, these are staggering numbers. So the question is, who's going to pay for this? And look, I'm gonna be whatever they said on the poet society. I'm gonna be just fertilizer for plants. But somebody is gonna have to pay that 31 trillion or 41 trillion or 51 trillion or whatever it is, and they should be thinking in terms of not that give me free loans, but they should be thinking of how do we reorganize the United States so that we can begin to seriously deal with our problems. Because if we're bankrupt, we don't have to worry about the Chinese and the Russians and everybody else. They're gonna eat our lunch because we're not going to have the money to spend. And the other point is, and I've talked about this many times, and people get offended when I do it, but when a generation grows up and they have to pay $31 trillion in debt for debt they never incurred because they were young and they didn't incur it. That's virtually involuntary servitude. And they are going to live debt to the federal government for the rest of their lives. And they need to start appreciating the fact that, yeah, we can keep on giving things away, but at some point, it's coming home and somebody's going to have to pay. It ain't going to be me because I ain't going to be here. It's going to be them. And so they really need to start coming to grips. And that's why when they get involved in politics like they are now, I'm thrilled. They should be involved. They should be voting and helping make the decisions for the country. And part of our obligation is to help educate them on what the options are. But they've got a real serious debt problem, and I don't know what they're going to do with it because it's being passed on and on and on. It can only be passed on so long.
Well, I know one thing in the black community here in the same people do that. There was a time that most of our political leaders, when they became an alderman, state rep, or whatever, they were retired for some. They were retired people that had the time to go out and be a politician.
Uh-huh.
And so now, okay, we're seeing a whole new generation of much younger people, okay, that get involved. Like the gentleman, like the guy in Florida, they elected, the first, the Z generation member to the Congress there. And I'm noticing that this new generation that's coming up now that made a difference in the last election, I think they've become more aware at an early age than we did, okay, at least not what I did, about what it was, okay, what the power actually meant, and who controlled it, what power really was, so to speak. I'm saying.
The only reason why I disagree with you on that point, Ira, is because you and I grew up in the era of Vietnam, and we knew exactly what power meant.
Oh yeah, well, we did, okay, but at the same time, it took us a little while, to understand, what was driving. We always knew, okay, like you probably knew, okay, that what was driving, okay. I'm saying, but for the majority of our people at that time, they didn't understand it, okay. The politics behind what the war in Vietnam was all about. I mean, eventually, they came to light. And and people say, "Oh, the light bulb went off." No shit, stupid French, but I think now at a young age now, even I'm listening to young people talking about in high school their experiences. So they got issues, okay, concerned about their safety things, okay, that they want to put on the table that's more down to earth, okay, that's about their future, how their future going to be. They want to have some input into it.
Well, everyone should have input into their future. I
think in the black community, but the other thing that been in the black community, okay, we have been disproportionately pushed around, set aside, how you want to call it, okay, and even most recently, President Trump declared an emergency, okay, first thing he did, okay, we did away with somehow some of the rights that blacks thought we had at that time, that there was an emergency. If I recall, our late leader in the National Special Congress, Harry Alford, called the action summit, if you recall. Oh, by the way, check your vote. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. Sounds like a vigorous discussion, and Bill, all the best. Top to you as well, and all of our panel that's with us in the studio, and all of our audience. Thank you for tuning in. And when you say they, it was good. Bill, you were mentioning they. It's good they're voting. Who was they that you're referring to?
Oh, the younger people.
Oh, we talked about the younger. When we came in, we were talking about the younger generation as now. For the first time, that generation, I think at an earlier age, okay, is more involved in the political world. Chuck, we have Cheyenne on the show all the time. Okay, she now talking just last night, this week, about what actually took place. And she was telling me about some of the things that the young people were concerned about. And one of those things were they grew up worried about school safety and gun safety. And that's one thing that's driving them, okay, that they don't see anybody trying to, do anything to do away, that make some laws, okay, and Bill raised the point, which I agree with 1,000%, it's a mental issue, because in most cases, they do come down to those things, but the family structure that we all knew growing up, or all three of us that's on the show here, has been disintegrating for the most part. Chuck, you go for it. Bill, you go for it. If we want to take a piece of that. And I think that's what we're watching.
No, I really, when Chuck joined, I wanted to ask, do I have to call you Mr. President now, or can
no, you know what?
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm taking great pleasure in not having to change the hat as much as adapt to the times, and I think that's really what we're talking about. And I was just thinking in a brief moment of just random thoughts about the implications of this
what we're seeing from the midterms and how that may translate and impact in our daily lives. So, on one hand, it may not be that much difference, but if you kind of get beneath the surface, or as they say, peel back some of the layers of the onion, you start seeing that it is very issue-driven, and that it has a lot to do with who spoke to what audience with what message. And it is a lot less, I don't feel that there is a blanket partisan polarization on whether it's Democrat or Republican. And certainly the whole thing about the Supreme Court, not only the rollback on abortion, but certainly now they're opening the door on affirmative action, and with the things that are happening there. Then you go and look at what was the message, what was going on in Florida versus some of the other parts of the country. And I think as of today, the Democrats were like one victory, one seat away from gaining majority of the Senate. And so I've had a few calls this past week with various lobbyists that were curious to know about our take on it, our disposition. In lieu of their clients, in many cases, they directly relate to a candidate or an issue. And they were saying that, now is a good time to appeal to individual candidates on either side and let them understand what's of value, what's important to us in that, to see if they embrace that. Because I think we're going to have maybe a higher degree of accountability on rhetoric type of talk. People are getting out saying a lot of things, doing a lot of different things, and at this point, what's your position on these relevant issues? And maybe perhaps this is going to be the time when we're going to have a bit more accountability post-election on it.
Chuck, you just said something there. Okay, that's a big mouthful. And I was talking to Cheyenne last night about the younger people. But the question I asked her, okay, and you just brought it up there, it seems as though now, like what you just saying, people are reaching out now because they seem like now we're going to have more listening sections now. They want to listen to what people's concerns are more so than before, and telling us, dictate to us how this is where it's going to be. But they're doing more listening now before they take action. Am I right? Would that be an adequate description?
My comment to both of you is you're the most positive people I've ever heard, because I don't believe accountability is coming back into the system, because I think I really don't. I think that the election was really one of those things. I think the Democrats were very smart with the way they were able to use the mail-in ballots. I think that was brilliant. I think the younger generation came out in disproportionate to some of the other generations, which was again very smart. I think that the politicians really thought they could buy the election. Some of the House and the Senate campaign committees putting $20, $30, $40 million into races. That's incredible. And
that's a lot of money.
And spending billions of dollars. So I'm not sure that the accountability is there. I think what's happened, this is just me, but I'm on the fringe of this issue. I think the government right now is separate from the people. And what we have to understand is the federal government is a political organism. It's not the country. It's not the people. It's not the sovereign. It's a political organism. And they have separated themselves from us. And I don't think there's any accountability there. And I know that's a little far out position, but I'm very willing to defend that. You tell me politicians are accountable to anybody, and I don't think you get to 10 fingers.
Well, I agree. I agree in that they aren't accountable. They aren't accountable, and they are beholding. But boy, we're listening now and paying attention.
Right.
But the real thing is that we are really disconnected.
We are disconnected.
Yeah, we're so disconnected, and even not only disenfranchised, but like really not even trying to give two good thoughts, 2 minutes of thought on it. Life is having to move on regardless, and things are much more serious, and things are happening much more than what they reflect or what the media reflect. I mean, just something as simple as like picking a restaurant, Friday night. My wife doesn't really want to cook so much. And boy, when you go around, you see places that are dead and other places that got an hour and a half wait to get into them. You can see the winners and the losers taking shape. And there are some significant losers out here. And the winners really are independent. I mean, they are their own thing. They're not necessarily trying to be part of like the franchises. There's not a lot of franchises that are doing well. So in that, the independent thought of, well, I'll take a little of this or a little of that, but I'm not just buying into a blue or a red. We call it the blue pill or the red pill. And there's a lot more going on in the spectrum of the universe than those two dimensions, and how you have to buy into it.
I agree with you, Chuck, but I think, Bill, one of the things that this most of you and I in the real on this, okay, and we all recall back, there's a cartoon with I think it was Superman, I think it was back in those days, and how all the people in those days, I asked a question, they all had wore uniforms, okay, they dressed just alike. And so now what Chuck just said there, that we all right now are kind of fade into, people want to identify with my company, but now they're saying these companies are not all they make up to be. And so franchising is not what it used to be. Now people right now become more independent thinkers now, I think, than they were before. Would that be a good job?
Say that, paraphrase that again, say that.
That people become more independent thinkers now than ever before.
Boy, you can say that again in the sense that, okay, so let's take the, just in this past week, some of the stuff that's been going on. A lot of folks that are expanding, this younger generation, if you want to call it that, and of course, we're older, so we're talking about people who are probably 18 to 34, and maybe even a little bit older, up to 40, that if you look at two interesting things. One is Kanye West, and what is really going on there, and what was said, and all this accusations of anti-Semitism and that, and then what happened with Kyrie. And just on the surface, if you don't take a moment and listen to it, or try to go find, well, what did he say? You are just bombarded with the reaction to what he said. But then, so I'm like, well, what did he do? What did he say? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, and I'm hearing in Kyrie Irving's case, I'm hearing a very articulate explanation of what he did and the reaction he's getting. And I believe there's a subtext that he may actually have become a Muslim. But I don't know. But what he's saying isn't necessarily promoting one or the other, but he's given an observation. And in Kanye's case, what he's really saying is, Ira, something you and I always do. He's talking about, well, the entertainment industry is exploited, and it's been, his point was about the contracts. And so, you know how we say, don't hate the player, hate the game. But he's calling it out and calling attention to these issues. So at first, there's that, oh yeah, the narrative was, Kanye's off his beds. He's crazy again. And we're going to clip his wings. We're severing ties with him. And he's a billionaire or whatever he is. He got more money than most people. And so they're looking at that. Then I'm hearing what he said, and I said, I don't think that was necessarily anti-Semitic or whatever. And then this whole thing went into about, well, what is a Semite? And who are the Moors? And they started getting into history. And there's more of that. So it is raising the consciousness and the default disposition on issues about it. Now, if you ask the National Black Chamber of Commerce or ask some of the older folks about it or whatever, we always, in almost any industry, any business, start talking about follow the money. And what's going on in entertainment is nothing new. It's really been going on since the Harlem Renaissance era or even before. And so why do y'all or we keep signing the same contracts or accepting having to play in somebody else's is bake the cake? And you come in and say, well, I don't like your cake, or I don't like what you're doing, or whatever. It's like, okay, so stop buying it. Stop doing this, or do something different instead of just complaining because, this is kind of like that welfare mentality. So so in Kanye's case, they done forced him up against the wall to where he'd do like Prince or somebody and just say, I'm just going to put my record out myself. And I do it on the internet and bypass all that. That's why I believe that people like Will Smith and even R. Kelly or some of the others, they still have a lot of asset value. Their intellectual properties didn't lose anything. There was a time when even Oprah Winfrey had gone against Michael Jackson, and those two guys came out with the last allegations against him, and the people went out and tried to ban his record. Do you know, I think Michael Jackson is hotter now than he ever was. I mean, you can't, so it doesn't matter how much you want to assassinate the person, the personality, the assets and the commerce that is involved and engaged in around it. They might separate you from your ownership of your intellectual property, but boy, it sure continues to ring the cash register. So as this consciousness comes about, it's not going to take a nudge for one of these people to say, you know what, we are not going to buy this product. And as it gets to that, that's when you're going to see some action, some difference. Whether it's killing people or trying to silence you. But we're at that point now where, if anybody really trying to prescribe to that megaphone or that news channel or that social media thing, it's like we're looking to see what's going to happen with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And it's funny, Elon Musk went in, I don't know how many people he laid off, fired, or let go. But then a few days later, Facebook Meta says, well, we got to let 10,000 go.
11,000.
Yeah, and so the economy is doing some different things. The advertising coefficient of what they were doing has changed. Things are changing, but I believe I always try to positive mental attitude, look for the positivity in it. So maybe it is provoking discussion and dialogue that's been a little bit different. I've been one of the people, I've been hard on Kyrie from a business standpoint. Well, you signed a contract to play basketball, and you're not playing that much, and you chose not to get vaccinated, you did this and did that. So maybe it isn't about basketball, but maybe he's using that platform, that stage to speak on these other issues. And going back to the candidates, are we not supposed to have a voice? Are we not supposed to have an opinion? So you want to the audience, but what's our equity stake?
Well, that goes back to what I said initially. Okay, they are fine, and now they got to start listening to us, listen to the people. They got to listen. They're coming back to people right now listening after you. Okay, at your Commerce, they want to hear what black people think about. What are our thoughts? And that's overdue in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, come on, jump in here. Don't be quiet. Come on, Bill.
As you guys were talking about who's jumping in and who was going to break what contracts, how the political situation. I remember when I was growing up, I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old, and Eisenhower was running for president, and I remember some guy talking to my father, and he said, you really have to vote for Eisenhower because the country knows one thing. Eisenhower has proved that your country's most successful when the president does nothing. And think about that time frame. Eisenhower, great general, built the highway system, did a lot of stuff, but he never got involved in the mud of politics. Just sort of ran the government. The last person who did that, who had a balanced budget and a booming economy, was Calvin Coolidge. There's nothing that says that every day the president gets up, he has to attack somebody. This is insanity in my mind. And if you're going to get accountability, the president needs to get and take the job, or the congressman or whatever. This is just personal. And just, this is my job. I'm here in the Congress. My job is to listen to the people, formulate policy. If the president vetoes it, work with the House or the Senate to override it. But nobody seems to want to run on getting something done. They want to run on something very negative. And it all goes back, I think it goes back, frankly, to Fox News and MSNBC and the hatred that comes out of all of these people every day, because nothing, you just ask yourself the next time you're sitting down listening to one of these channels, has any commentator, has any guest, has anyone talked about a solution to any problems? Everything is too many people coming over the borders. The abortion issues killing women. You name it. You name whatever the issue is, they have a complaint about it. But this country is not going to move forward until somebody starts saying, you know, we've got an inflation problem. Here are the options for fixing it. Give me input, American people, on the options, and let me make it. That they never get the input on the options. Get the input on the hate.
One of the things I said, I was doing some debating stuff long years ago, and on a local level, okay, I'm going down to basic politics. In St. Louis, okay, there was a time that the committeeman had a role that he played. I mean, this person on the street, you know, he can get us votes together. And the only one, the councilman, okay, was the one that just had legislate, okay? You know, on the local level. Then the state representative, state senator did this stuff on the state level. Then so the congressman. Well, all those lines have been blurred now. I think and I think that's everyone from the bottom up to the top. And they start taking away the power from those different people, okay, to put in. When the committeeman job ended up being the alderman job, and so on and so on. And the people, they look at a slice idea. I just make it see the hall. They call downtown. They have a slight idea of who they need to talk to.
Right.
I mean, I think right now, I've seen this now manifest itself into, it's going to a national level, okay? People don't know what the congressman does, they don't know what the senators does, they don't actually know what their roles actually are. What the president role is, he just decides.
Excellent point. All the lines are blurred. And one of the things, to go back to sort of modern day politics today, you know, there's a controversy over whether or not McCarthy is going to get the speakership, and the issue is over Freedom Caucus wants to restrict the power of the speaker, and they want more power turned back to the committee chairman and to the ranking file. And McCarthy is offended. They want to take my power. First of all, it's not his power; it's the people's power. That's the first thing. The second thing is all these members of Congress are elected by citizens. And they've all been elected to go serve on an equal basis, not to have one person control the entire floor. And so when you begin thinking about the issue, what you're thinking about is everyone has blurred the lines. But what's happened, the blurring of the lines is the county council, they only the executive director of the county council wants all the power. State legislatures, the speaker wants the power. House of Representatives, the speaker wants the power. What's happened is the power is in so few people anymore. They're not smart enough to know that they don't know the answers.
Bill, you said a mouthful right there. Would you reach out?
Yes, sir. He sure did.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to say 255.
Okay, well, that's we got.
Bill did say, he said something that we're awesome. Nobody's offering solutions.
Thank you.
You know, and it's a game. And you know, it's like everybody wants to tell, well, this car ain't running right, and start it up. So, yeah, sound bad to me too. You know, it's like, can anybody? Is there a mechanic in the house? Oh, well, you know what? We're gonna stand around here and go backwards and scratch our head, and you know, and that's you get me going on a whole nother topic, but that's what it feels like. We're going back to the beginning of, I mean, this has been, 8 years since Trump was president. And now you got Obama coming back out. You had even Clinton out there, and Trump's out there. I'm like, man, we've heard all this before. We've seen this.
Yeah. Amen. Let the past go.
I mean, it has to, because the future, boy, it's turbulent.
Chuck, when I was a young guy in grade school down in Mississippi, they had a book that we all had to read, but the mandatory read. The name of the book was they said it can't be done. And the moral of the story was a man came to town, and everybody was telling him that this cannot be done. We can't fix it. And he listened to nobody. And he rolled his sleeves up, okay, and went to work while we're talking. At the end of the day, okay, he has solved the problem without listening to anybody. I mean, everybody had different ways how to solve the same problem, but no one, like you just said, no mechanic came to town. You know what I mean? It actually was dedicated to resolving the issue and not getting no opinion. I think that's where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Mm-hmm. And that was me in grade school, okay? So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm still saying that taking place as we speak, unfortunately. But as we wind down, you got a minute, okay, to kind of before I get just the last couple minutes. What's up?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good, talk to you later, guys. See you, Rev, and good luck, Chuck.
Thank you, and Bill.
Amen.
God bless.
Good luck, Chuck.
Bye-bye.
Good luck, Chuck. That's my name. My wife gave you, so good luck, Chuck. There you go. Come on, brother.
Goodbye.
Well, let's stay positive, and we're going to be offering solutions and by way of a call to action for leadership. And we're at least going to give the opportunity for the candidates to either recognize us or not recognize us. But we're going to say, so what you got to offer? Why should we have any affinity towards you or any of the policies or the principles and things you're voting for? And we're going to translate that into action and hopefully also solutions.
And also, Chuck, give us a report, okay, on the collaboration between the business and where we are with that.
Where are we with cooperation?
The same on the Black Business Alliance, where we are.
The Black Business Alliance is that's where we got a solution for. The Black Business Alliance is in the lab, so to speak. We're in the planning, we're in deliberations of putting together our scorecard.
Okay.
The scorecard is going to measure the actual, factual, statistical performance of government as well as the corporate sector on contracting, and essentially this talk about diversity suppliers, about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and where is all this $40 billion that y'all pledged for diversity contracting and spending that never left your bank account?
Well, Chuck, let's wrap up. So we're going to follow the money. My name is Al Force. That's Good Luck Chuck, CEO of the Manufacturing Company. That's Alan Lau. That's Scott Owens. I'm president of
Amen.
My name is Al Force, CEO of the Manufacturing Company. Thank you for joining us on a beautiful Saturday. Thank you for Chuck. Thank you for Bill Kovac. And no Scott, you got advice. Good have